Alright, what is going on? I'm Sean. I am a high ticket remote closer, and this week I just want to talk about closing $60,000 in a single week. I kind of just want to share what exactly I did to do it, my entire strategy, everything, and the proof as well. So I kind of want to make this to help others, in addition to just kind of document this for myself, so that in the future, when I do look back on my journey and everything, I can watch this video and brings a smile to my face. So, yeah. What we're going to cover, just how I did it and the proof. We'll get to the proof very shortly. But very first of all, I just kind of want to mention that I kind of want to talk about the numbers a little bit, right? So the closing percentage that I personally have is 70%. Okay, and if you're in sales and you hear the closing percentage is 70%, you're like, how the fuck is that even possible? I will explain that in a second. Just give me a second. Let me get to it, and I will explain that. But yeah, I guess let's get, and also very quickly, my strategy as well. I follow a very specific strategy, and it's something that I developed over the years, just because you have to realize, right? Sales is kind of an up and down cycle. You have uptrends and you have downtrends. You have uptrends and you have downtrends, right? Just like life, you have peaks and troughs, right? But after I realized this about sales, and I realized why I had troughs, it wasn't because I wasn't happy. It wasn't because of really any mental things. It was just I always lost sight of this specific strategy, and I followed it through the years, and I've been able to be extremely consistent now, by just having this in mind whenever I sell. And I've seen a lot of gurus on YouTube talk about it as well. There's only a handful of gurus that actually practice this, but the ones that actually do, they genuinely they tend to have the best fan bases. They tend to have the best communities. They tend to do the best in terms of making the most money as well. So we'll touch on that. Let's get into the proof, and yeah.
All right, so let's jump right into the week of 7-1. And just to show you guys that I'm not capping, um, I'll show you guys the whole sheet. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that because that's low key kind of crazy. I'm not going to show you guys the whole sheet. I just don't want to do that. I honestly feel like that feels kind of wrong, just out of respect to the actual offer owner. So I'm just going to show you guys this specific week 7/1 through 7/6. Okay. So basically, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total closes so far this week. And I calculated the close rate roughly. It was about 72, 73%. Okay. Obviously, if you're in sales and you hear 73% close rate, you're like, what is this guy talking about? That's absolutely absurd, right? Look, it's a 73% close rate. I generally close around 70%. The It's just you have to realize it's a combination of two things: knowing how to sell and a really good offer. But you combine those two, and you combine also one more thing with the fact that it's remote sales. You are going to close like crazy. Okay. Now, granted, I say close like crazy. If you're not good at sales, obviously you're not going to close, right? Regardless of how good the offer is, regardless of how good everything is. Like everything can be set in stone and in place for you. If you're not good at sales, trust me, you'll do more harm than you do good. So you obviously have to know to sell, but then if you get everything else right, then it's all going to fall together and be very good. Industry average for remote sales in terms of closing rate is anywhere between 30 and 50%. So obviously, I'm pushing 70. I will attribute that a little bit as well to the fact that um, I've I've done harder shit than this. So this to me is pretty easy in terms of the closes and everything. But regardless, it's I'm very grateful to be in this position where I am in a good offer with a bunch of people I really do respect. Um, and yeah, so these are the numbers.
All right, let's talk about the who, what, where, when, how, AP language English class 11th grade. No. Let's just talk about how I did it and like how I did it and all the mindset stuff and all you need to know so that you can do it yourself as well. Okay? I want to very first start this section off by just saying I did not even know that I hit 60K in a week. I didn't even know. I think that says a lot, okay? How I found out was I was having a sales training, like a call with one of my clients, and we were talking about basically how we did for the week, you know. And he was like, hey dude, how'd you do for the week? And I was like, I don't know, you know. I knew I did well. I knew it was a week where I closed a decent amount. You know, we had a lot of high ticket sales come in, and yeah. So I kind of just wanted to touch on that. I will also, I probably should have mentioned earlier, but I'm just gonna mention it now. That's like the sheet that you just saw, right, on the computer that's right here with my notes on it, right? The sheet that you just saw, if you go back to it, because I'm not gonna even bother, I'm not gonna bother showing you guys, like I'm not gonna bother recording another loom, all right? But just to be very specific, okay? If you go back, you see the numbers. There's not that many closes. There's about 6 or 7, I believe, 6 or 7 closes, 3 of which were for 18,000, not even dollars, euros, okay? So it's a lot of high ticket stuff that I sell. And very quickly, I'd like to note, the way you sell high ticket stuff is the same way you sell normal stuff, all right? I sell everything the same way, and that's how I'm able to be consistent, because this way is consistently good. And we'll talk about all the strategy stuff later, but going back to the point I was trying to make about me conversing with my client, I didn't even know that I hit this number this week, you know? And we're conversing, we're talking, and then he asked me, like, how you doing this week? And I went and checked. I saw there was 60K for the week, you know? And after I had this really deep thought process to myself where it's like I was thinking to myself, like, I didn't even know. Like, that's kind of crazy. Most people, if they hit 60K in a week, the first instinct would be to film a video, right? Obviously, I'm filming a video right now, but it wasn't my first instinct. My first instinct was just, damn, you know, like, how did I, like, that's solid, you know? But the point I'm trying to get across is the best salespeople, and by no means am I calling myself the best, right? I'm just saying, if you actually know what you're doing, you're not necessarily that focused on the numbers, you know? All the best salespeople I know, they don't even really think about their closing rates or a lot of those, like, soft metrics until you actually ask them. You know, they generally don't even know. Like, I personally don't know exactly what my closing rate right now is. I know for a fact it's between 60 and 70%, maybe even higher, maybe approaching 80, I'm not exactly sure. But all I know is just, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'm going to get better and better. And it's only going to go up and up, you know? So that's kind of the point I'm getting across. If you genuinely want to make it, just focus on getting better. Don't worry about the numbers, the closing percentages. If you just work hard and you have the right people helping you and you have the right mindset, you're going to do just fine, okay? Now, I'm going to now talk about the sales strategy that I have, you know? What exactly I did to sell this amount. And just so you guys know, on average, I probably close upwards of 6 figures a month. I've had months where I close 100K. I've had months where I close 200K. I've obviously had months where I close less. But just to kind of give you guys reference, I kind of know what I'm doing, you know, and it's consistent enough to the point where I don't call it luck anymore. You know, I think the difference between luck and someone who's actually not lucky, first off, understanding what you're doing, and number 2, just being consistent. If you do it over and over again, that means you understand what you're doing. If you understand what you're doing, then it's not luck. So that's just the point I'm trying to get across. What I do, my sales philosophy is very simple, and the sales philosophy is the one that has gotten me to where I am today. It's very simple. It's just to help people. That's it. That's it. Okay, and you might think, to fucking, like, no shit, like, what are you doing, scamming people? But look, hear me out. It's not exactly what you think. Let me lay out an example for you, okay? I'm pretty sure we all have friends, right? I want you to think about a time where you had a friend who was really fucking up their lives, right? Maybe they were screwing up in school, they weren't going to school, maybe they were doing drugs, maybe they were just in a point in their life where you could tell they were not doing the right thing, and they kind of knew it too, right? Now, if you're a real friend, you had a conversation with them, and you probably were thinking you got to have a talk with them. You know, you wanted to call them out, like a little mini intervention, right? And you go and you have this deep conversation with your friend who's struggling a little bit. You're like, hey, like, look, genuinely this is how I feel about what you're doing, and like I genuinely think this is what we should be doing. You have this deep ass talk, and if you remember what happened in the end, right? If you were actually a good friend, they probably agreed with you in some shape or form. At the very end, maybe you guys cried, right? And they agreed with you, like, dude, do you really think that's true? And in the end, you guys probably did some form of hugging it out, and that you guys moved on. It was a very deep conversation, right? And at the end, they were probably like, "You're right, dude. You're right. Fuck, I gotta change." And guess what? You might not realize it, but you sold them. You sold them on your belief that you believe that they were doing something wrong. And at the very end, they're like, "You're right, dude. You're fucking right." And you may not have realized it, but because you care, and because you're so passionate about that conversation, you used all the right tonality, right? Think about your tonality there. You were very passionate, right? You didn't have to manipulate your tonality. You were genuinely passionate, so your tonality was passionate. You said all the right things, you had all the right questions, you had all the right answers, right? And at the very end, what happened? He believed you. It's the same exact thing as sales. Sales is just using a combination of all these things to sell someone on a certain belief, right? And there's one part after the belief, after you sell them on it, is that they have to buy something. Sure, but all the steps prior to the sell, right? All the steps prior to the prospect actually paying, right? It was the same thing as that conversation with your friend. And so you got to realize, it's like when you have helping people as your intention, that's the best way to sell. It makes everything 10 times easier. Everything flows. Your logic makes sense. You don't have to come up with any bullshit. Like, I don't know if you guys are like some salesmen watching this out there, right? If you've ever had a prospect and you were trying to sell them and it just didn't make sense and you knew you were coming up with some bullshit, those sales are the worst fucking sales ever, because after the sale you get so frustrated. You're like, am I doing something wrong here? Like, what am I doing wrong? And the reality is you're not doing anything wrong. The only thing you're doing wrong is just you're selling someone something they don't need. And when you do that, first off, you're not going to feel good about yourself, and second off, it's just like you're not going to be able to be consistent that way. There's just no way. Like, you might trick somebody, because that's what it is. It's tricking, right? You might trick somebody every once in a while, right? But do you feel good about yourself after? No, right? And it's not a consistent strategy. Your strategy is just to trick people now? No. And that's what my personal strategy is. Just whenever I'm selling people stuff, like, I just have helping in mind. I just think, how can I help this person genuinely? What makes the most sense for them, right? And everything just flows, So if you're having trouble with sales and you want to sell more, you want to get your closing percentage up, sell to help. And guess what? You're probably thinking, dude, if I sell to help, well, not everyone needs what I'm selling. Exactly. Not everyone is going to need what you're selling. And sometimes you are going to have to give up that sale. You are. Sometimes when you're talking to that widowed mother who has $1,000 left in her checking account and you want to sell her some econ program, dude, you might have to not sell her. And it's crazy I even have to say that, but I know people who would fucking sell that widowed mother with, $1,000 left in her account. And this is just what good sales is. If you want to up your closing percentage, you have to accept the fact that there's just some people who won't need what you're selling. But the people who do need what you're selling are going to feel so much more inclined to buy because you're so much more convincing that they do buy. And you are going to capitalize on that. And trust me, it's like there's going to be a lot more people who need what you're selling than they don't. All right? Trust me on that. Okay? So, and I also want to touch on this. I was not a talented salesperson when I first started. Okay? I started with cold call. The fucking, the boonies, basically. Real estate wholesale, right? I remember working for this rich ass guy, and he made me skip if you guys know what driving for dollar is, it's basically like you drive in rundown neighborhoods looking for houses that people might want to sell. And that motherfucker made me drive, or I mean, he didn't make me, obviously. I did it because I wanted to. But I found I drove for 2 months, and I probably took pictures and took notes and took down the address of over 1,000 houses, you know. And the guy was like, dude, just do this, drive for dollars, come back to me when you're done, right? And I did that. I drove for fucking 2 months. I woke up at like 5 a.m. every day. I was only 17, by the way. And I did that, and guess what? When I brought him that list of 1,000 people, I was so proud. I was like, dude, like I did it, you know? And you know what this motherfucker said to me? All right. You know, he typed on his computer for a little bit, right? And then he's like, all right, take a look. And I looked, I was like, what is this? You know? And bro, it was 1,000. He skip traced, meaning he found the phone numbers and the contact information for all 1,000 people. And he was like, all right, now it's time for you to call them. I was like, what? Like, you want me to call these motherfuckers? Like that's crazy, you know? But I was like, all right, fuck it, I'll try it, you know? Because at that, like back then, I didn't really know. It's just like, if you tell me to do something and you make more money than me, fuck it, I'll do it, you know? So I did it, and I called all 1,000 people, and in those, it took me about 3 months to call through that entire list. And in that 3 months, I got one deal, and I made $10,000 in that one deal in 3 months, you know? And it was shit. If you're gonna do real estate wholesale, don't fucking do it, all right? But I did learn a very valuable lesson, a very, very valuable lesson that has carried, through me, that I've carried with me through everything I've ever done, and it's to be able to face rejection, and it's so cliche, I know, but it is important. But after you get past the fear of rejection part, like, you gotta start focusing on taking less rejection, because that's where sales comes in. A lot of salespeople are like, dude, I'm not scared of anything. Like, I'll face all the rejection. I'll knock 1,000 doors. I'll call 1,000 people. They all say no to me. I don't give a fuck. I was like, dude, you're calling 1,000 people. They're all saying no. That's crazy. That's crazy. So, anyway, I didn't have success when I first started. Okay, and you may be at a point right now where you may not be having success, or you would like to be doing better than you are now. And trust me, if you sell to help, you will get there. Okay, now. When I first started, right? When I first started in the specific position that I'm in now, right? Because obviously I went from real estate wholesaling to knocking doors. I have a video on knocking doors. I was actually #1 in the nation. You guys can watch that video if you want. I went from the cold calling, knocking doors, eventually to transitioning where I am now, where I do remote sales, And remote sales, all we do is I just take calls, talk to people, but I do it from home in this very chair, right here, with this very laptop that I have right here, and yeah, it's a lot better because, and this is like genuinely, if you want to get into sales, if you're already in sales, if you're doing door to door, anything other than remote sales is ridiculous. Like, you're gonna get paid more for the same amount of work that you can do from home, if not less work, So it's an absolutely ridiculous opportunity, and like the most amazing thing as well is just you genuinely learn so much, and you realize that everything that you ever did up to this point was pointless, because in remote sales, it's like you learn all the other lessons. Like, there's still rejection, there's still a lot of grit that you have to put up with, right? But it's easier, and it's like, obviously you have to learn all those lessons, but the thing is, after you learn the lessons, if you still have to eat shit, that kind of sucks, right? If you face rejection and you gotta face more rejection, and no matter what, if you call 1,000 people, you're only gonna get one person, that sucks. Remote sales, it's like, if you get better, you're going to see an instant increase. You are going to see an instant increase. If you look at something like door-to-door, right? Door-to-door is like seasonal. If you get better, it's going to take you a lot of volume to see an increase. A lot of volume. With something like remote sales, and the reason why I'm saying like it's easier is because the leads are framed. Like, imagine the person you're selling to already knows who you are, what you're offering, and has basically had everything explained to them already. You just got to basically answer a few questions and close them. It sounds easy, right? Well, it is. And I think earlier I touched on the fact that I wanted to talk about my 70% closing rate, right? That's a part of the reason how I'm able to get such high of a closing rate. Industry standard, obviously 70%. Even for the industry, regardless of how easy it is still high. Industry standard for remote sales is about 30 to 50%, or 50% is already really solid. Obviously 70% is really good, or even better. But part of the reason why I'm able to do that is because just this opportunity is insane, you know? And when I first started remote sales, you know, and you're probably hyped as fuck to start remote sales, like, dude, I'm start looking into it. You know, I'm gonna caution you. I'm gonna caution you to getting into remote sales because generally it's flipped. You know, like if you ever wanted to do door to door or cold calling, right? You're gonna realize that it's really easy to get your foot in the door. It's really easy. If you wanted a cold calling job or a door to door job with no experience, you could probably have one by next week. And the reason is because they just try, like, their leads are cheap and they have very little to lose by having you. But you have to realize these remote sales offers, right? Generally speaking, the leads are extremely framed, right? Meaning that almost every person you talk to has the potential to buy. So if you suck, let's just say you talk to 10 leads, and out of those 10 leads, 8 of them would have actually bought if you were good. And you know, you're selling a program for $3,000. That means that if you don't close any of them, that offer owner just lost out on $24,000. You know, and generally that's how it is, and that's why remote sales, it's very, very, very competitive to find a good offer, because the offer owners have a lot to lose. They're very selective, and there's a lot of people who are looking to get into these kinds of positions. Because once you get in, you know, as long as you have the skill to back it up, you are going to make a lot of money, like a lot of money. It's ridiculous. Okay, so that's kind of the reason why. And when I first started in remote sales, right, you have to realize I was already number one. I came off a previous door-to-door job being number one in the entire nation for door-to-door sales. Door-to-door sales, by the way, I would say is probably just as hard, if not harder, than cold calling. I had just come off of that, and I struggled to find an offer when I was looking in the very beginning, you know? Like, genuinely, I struggled. I just couldn't find a job. I worked in a few offers. I worked in this one offer. I'm not going to name his name. But he was this online, like, guru who had no leads. You know, he hired me. He was like, dude, you got the golden voice, man. Like, you got the golden voice. We're going to make a lot of money together. I was like, that sounds good to me. And I was like, okay, well, I have 5 p.m. through, 10 p.m. open for work. I'm just sitting here. There's no calls. And the leads he would get me, like it wasn't even real. It was bad. Like, they were horrible leads. They didn't even know who he was. He got his marketing. He got his leads. Like, his way of advertising was by posting someone else's face. Like, for example, I remember he used Jordan Peterson one time, and he made it look like Jordan Peterson was endorsing what he was saying. And after the clients realized that he was just a fraud, like, they just did, of course they didn't buy, you know? And I was called scammer over and over again, and I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Because genuinely, I had no idea. I never even really looked at his content. I just thought, sales job, I know sales, let's make money, you know? So, and think about it, it's like any sales job. If you're working a door-to-door position, like, are you gonna get to learn more about all the intricacies of the solar panel you're selling? Or the specific, chemical that you guys use in your pest control? No, you're not. You're not. I'm sorry, you're not. You're here to sell. That's your job. So I didn't look into what he was selling, and that's my own mistake, And I ended up working at that offer for about 2 months, and you know how much I made? I'm afraid, I didn't make a single dollar. I didn't make a dollar. It was horrible, And that's not even the worst I've heard. Like, if you try to find a remote sales job, you're gonna find a lot of people who are scammers. Like, if you apply for a remote sales job, I kid you not, there are people who go in these specific places where these job postings take place, and if you apply, they will call you. They will literally call you and try to sell you on finding a sales job. If you don't believe me, go try it. Go into these Facebook groups. Go into these groups. Apply for some jobs. See what happens. You're gonna get a call from a guy who says, hey, you're looking for a sales job? Oh, we got a sales job, but we prefer to do it in-house, So we're going to train you, we're going to get you a job, you're going to be working in the position I'm calling you from now. It's just $1,000, How's that sound? That's, it's crazy, and people do fall for that, by the way. It's a scam. I'm sorry, it's a scam. That's quite literally the closest thing I can think of to an MLM or a pyramid scheme. If it's not, let me know. But it sounds that way to me. And so it's very, very difficult, even if you're good at sales, to find an offer in this remote sales space. And even if you, it's just crazy. So if you're looking to get into remote sales, and you have no experience or you have some experience, that's kind of the caution that I want to give you, you know, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be very difficult for you to offer. I would still urge you to do it, 100% do it, you know. The hardest part is just figuring out whether the offer is actually a good offer or not. And if it's not, I'm sorry to say, but you're going to end up wasting a lot of time. You're going to spend months and months in an offer that promises you the world but gives you nothing. They give you nothing. So be very careful about that, okay? Now, if you genuinely are interested in getting into remote sales, like genuinely you want to do this, you know this is what you want to do, okay? And you've made a little bit of money in sales, or maybe you don't have any money in sales, but you've worked really hard, and you got to a position now where it's like, I need to pick a business model, right? I am currently doing coaching for finding offers and basically the A to Z process, how to find an offer. And I will vet offers with you personally. I will show you what a good offer looks like. And if you're really good, you might even get a position, a chance to work in the offer that I'm currently in. I will show you how to find offers. I will teach you exactly how I sell, the A to Z process. Obviously, the mindset things are important. There's a little bit more that goes into it though, And I will just walk you through the entire A to Z process. It'll be one-on-one. It's a full-on mentorship. So if that sounds interesting to you, click the link below, sign up for a call, and we'll see if you are a good fit. If you're a good fit, amazing. We're going to start working together. If not, then no worries. You can part as friends. So, yeah.